We continue now at the top of Daf Beis Amud Beis in Meseches Sotah. This is Sotah Daf Tube. The Gemara is in the middle of learning that anytime the pasuk says aid, if it doesn't say aid echad, so the word aid means shnayim, it means two witnesses. And the point is to learn out that when it comes to Sotah, if you have one aid that sees the act of adultery, so that is enough to say that she is prohibited and she will not drink from the waters in that situation. And so the Gemara says again, the pasuk says lo yakam aid echad beish, mimashma shenemar lo yakam aid beish. If it just would have said lo yakam aid beish, any yodea shu echad, wouldn't I assume that an aid means one witness? Mat hamad lomar echad. So why does the pasuk say lo yakam aid echad beish? And so the Gemara understands zeh bona av. What this says is it builds for us the following principle: kol makom shenemar aid harei kan shnayim. That anytime the pasuk says aid, what it really means is two witnesses. At sheyifrad lachak kasav echad, unless the pasuk specifies that we are talking about one witness. And so now the pasuk by Sotah we understand as follows. V'yomer achmana, the pasuk says trei lesba. They have a situation where you don't have two witnesses. Elachad, rather you only have one witness. That's one witness to the actual act of adultery. V'hilonis basa, and then the pasuk goes on to say, and she was not forced. It was not a situation of rape. So in that case, asura, she's prohibited. So you see that just one aid alone is enough to create the prohibition. But the Gemara continues, but the only reason is because it says lo yakom eid echad beish, because it says that, so we understand that the word aid means two witnesses. And if it didn't say that pasuk, hava amina, then I would have thought aid de sotah chadu, that the pasuk, when it uses the word aid by Sotah, it's referring to the fact that there was not even one witness. But that's problematic. V'afilu chad lek, if the pasuk means to say that there was not even one witness, and it's talking about prohibiting her, ela b'may mitzvah, so then why are we prohibiting her? If there's no witnesses that anything occurred, why should she be prohibited? And the Gemara says, no, you could have understood the pasuk differently. It's needed for the following reason. Because I might have thought to read the pasuk, aid ein ba, ein nemon ba. What it means is aid ein ba, that a witness, meaning to say, let's say we're talking about one witness, that one witness is not believed. But the Gemara says, no, ein nemon ba. But if the pasuk means to say that one witness is not believed, v'ela my boy ad the ika, but then what is required? So we're saying the pasuk is saying one witness is not believed, and instead what's required? You need two witnesses. So lishto kramine, the pasuk then doesn't need to say anything. Let the pasuk be silent. The asya davar mimamim, and we'll just learn from Gzeira Shava. It says davar, and we'll learn because it also says davar by mammon. By arayas it says ervas davar, and by dinei mammonis it says al pishnei edim yakum davar. And we'll learn out. I will know that you need two witnesses. That's true by all testimonies in the Torah. You need two witnesses. So why would the pasuk even need to say that? And the Gemara says, no, the pasuk would be needed. Itzrich, it would be needed. Because I might have thought, Sotah Shani, that by the case of Sotah it's different. Maybe even one witness there would be good, even though in typical cases that is not true. Because over here already there's reason to believe that there actually was an act of adultery. Because he warned her and she went into seclusion. There's reason to believe that something was happening. So therefore I might have thought we should believe one witness. And so therefore maybe that's how I would have understood the pasuk, and that's why we need to have the binyan av, that the word aid actually means two witnesses, and the pasuk is actually saying that there are not two witnesses, and we actually do believe one witness. But the Gemara still says, but could you actually say that what the pasuk means is that one aid is not believed and therefore she's permitted? But the pasuk isn't talking about a leniency, the pasuk is talking about a stringency on the woman. From the fact that the pasuk goes on to say, and she wasn't forced, it wasn't a situation of rape, that implies the pasuk is talking about prohibiting her, so it can't be that the pasuk means that one witness is not believed, it must be saying some kind of belief of the witness. And so the Gemara says, no, it's still needed. You might have learned the pasuk that it means one witness is not believed, and unless you have two, meaning it's really telling you that we believe in a situation of two witnesses. Over trey nami he delonis basan. And the pasuk is going on to say, and if you have two witnesses, it also has to be a situation where she's not forced. That could have been how we understood the pasuk. So kamash malon. So that's what the binyan av is teaching us, that what the pasuk actually means is you don't have two witnesses, and when we have one witness, we actually do believe one witness in the situation of Sotah. And the Gemara continues that the two dots, Rabbi Yoshua Omer, the Mishnah said that Rabbi Yoshua says, Mekani la pishnayim v'chulu, that the warning and also the seclusion, there has to be two witnesses. And again, Rabbi Eliezer said that by the warning, so over there you need to have two witnesses, but not by the seclusion. And the Gemara says, my time at Rabbi Yoshua, what's the reason of Rabbi Yoshua that by both you need to have two witnesses? Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says ba, it says with her, and we understand that to mean ba, that's talking about by the act of defilement, by the act of adultery, ba v'lo bekinoi, one witness is good by the tumah, but not by the warning. By the warning, we need two witnesses. And bavalo bestira, the same thing again. By the actual act of adultery, we need only one witness, but not by stira, by the seclusion. In that case, you actually need two witnesses. That's how Rabbi Yoshua understands that by both kinoi and stira, you need two witnesses. Rabbi Eliezer, he says, bavalo bekinoi, we just darshan ba, and not by kinoi, meaning kinoi needs two witnesses, but stira is just like tumah. Stira only needs one witness. V'ema bavalo bestira, but why don't we say the other way? Why not say bavalo bestira and say that stira needs two witnesses? And to that, the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer holds stira iskish latuma. The stira, the seclusion, is actually compared to the act of defilement itself. T'chsiv, as the pasuk says, v'nistra v'hi nitma, it puts the word v'nistra next to nitma, and therefore we understand, according to Rabbi Eliezer, you only need one witness by the stira. But the Gemara says, kinoi nami iskish latuma, but also the warning that's also compared to tuma. T'chsiv v'kinei es ishto v'hi nitma, the pasuk puts them together. It says v'kinei by the word nitma. And to that the Gemara says, no, hamiyat rachmana ba, we already have an exclusion. It says the word ba, and therefore we exclude kinoi, and we say that kinoi requires two witnesses. But the Gemara says, umarisa, but how do you know again? We're back to the original question. How do you know that the exclusion applies to kinoi and not to stira? And the Gemara says, mistabra stira adifa. It makes sense that stira is better. Shekeno sarta ketuma, because stira is prohibiting her like tuma prohibits her. It's something that creates a prohibition, and therefore they should be similar. The Gemara says, adrab, on the contrary, kinoi adaf, kinoi should be considered better. Shekein ikar garamla, because that's the main thing that causes everything to go into effect. What starts the whole process is the kinoi. But the Gemara says, no, he loves stira. Kinoi mi'ika, if you don't have stira, so what's the kinoi worth? But the Gemara says, v'lav kinoi, but without the warning, stira mayahani, what's the seclusion going to do? So therefore, we still don't have an argument why to choose one over the other. And the Gemara in the end says, afilu achi, nevertheless, despite all these arguments, stira adifa, stira is preferred, meaning stira is the one that's compared to tumah, only needs one witness, the aschalta de tumahi, because that's the beginning of the act of defilement process. And the Gemara continues, Masnisan de Loki Aitana de Tanya, our Mishnah does not follow the Tana of the following brayso, Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rabbi Eliezer. This is Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Again, we had Rabbi Eliezer in our Mishnah, and this is another version of Rabbi Eliezer. Hamakane liishto, if somebody warns his wife, Makane al pi echad or al pi atzmo. If a person warns his wife, he can do it through just one witness or even just himself. Umashkelo al pi shnayim, but it's the giving her to drink that has to be done through two witnesses, meaning the act of seclusion, etc. That needs to be through two witnesses. And so the Gemara says, Hey Shivu Chachamim Ledivrei Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. The Chachamim responded to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda that if that's the case, Ein L'davar Sof, there is no end, and that will be explained in the Gemara. The idea is if the husband himself can just warn the wife, so there's no end. He can simply say he warned her, even if he didn't warn her, and it can lead to all kinds of false accusations. And the Gemara says, My time at Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he say that when it comes to the warning, you only need one witness? And the reason is Amar Kratz, because the pasuk says ba. Again, the pasuk says the word ba, and that's talking about tumah, and it means ba velo bestira, meaning by tumah one witness is sufficient. By stira, that's where you need two witnesses. But again, when it comes to the warning as well, the kinoi as well, that's compared to tumah, and only one witness is required. Ve'ema ba velo bekinoi. Again, the Gemara asks like before, maybe the word ba comes to exclude the warning, and maybe it's the warning that requires two witnesses. And the Gemara says kinoi iskish latuma. No, warning that's compared to tumah in the pasuk. T'chsiv, like the pasuk says, v'kinei is ishto v'hi nitma, puts the word v'kinoi near the word nitma. And the Gemara says, like it said above, stira nami iskish latuma, isn't the seclusion also compared to tumah? T'chsiv v'nistra v'hi nitma, it says v'nistra v'hi nitma. And the Gemara says to that, Tahu l'kama shir stira kedei tumah hudasa. No, that comparison is saying what is the amount of time they need to go into seclusion. It's the amount of time that it takes for the act of defilement. That's what we use, or that's what we learn from the pasuk of v'nistra v'hi nitma. And so therefore that pasuk is not used to compare them in terms of the number of witnesses. And so that's why we say that when it comes to the stira, according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, you only need one. According to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, by the stira, that is not compared to tumah, and by stira you need two witnesses. And it's by the kinoi, according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, within Rabbi Eliezer, it's by the kinoi that you only need one witness. And the Gemara says, "Hey shivu chachamim l'divrei Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda." We said above that the chachamim respond to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, who says you only need one witness by kinoi. So they say back, "Ein l'davar sof." According to that, there'll be no end to the matter. Ma'iniu, what exactly does that mean? And what it means is, like we said above, the zimnin de lo kani v'amar kanoi. It means to say sometimes he really didn't even warn the husband, didn't even warn the wife, and he'll say, "I warned the wife," and he's allowed to, since you only need one witness, or it could even be on his own word to warn the wife. So then there's going to be no end to the amount of accusations. And the Gemara says, one second, if you're saying according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda there's no end, but that's true in our Mishnah's version of Rabbi Eliezer also, you have just one witness, or the husband himself can testify about the seclusion. Mishnah seinu yesh l'davar sof. Do you think that in our Mishnah there is an ending to the matter? Zimnin de lo istater. You can have a case where she didn't go into seclusion. V'yamer istater, and he'll say she went into seclusion. Anytime you have a situation where the husband is believed, whether it's by the kinoi or by the stira, we can argue ein l'davar sof. And the Gemara says, you're right. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says that Rav Yochanan says, Af l'divrei Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda ein l'davar sof. It means even. Of course, according to our Mishnah, we're going to say that there's no end to the accusations of seclusion that he could make. But even according to Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda, there's no end. Because again, there's no end to the amount of times he can claim that he warned her. But the Gemara says, Af l'divrei Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda v'lo miboy l'mishnah seinu. It sounds like you're saying, even according to Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda, and certainly we don't even need to say, of course, according to our Mishnah, we have this problem. But the Gemara says, what do you mean? Adrab, on the contrary, l'mishnah seinu ika ikar. At least in our Mishnah, it's a little bit better because you have some main reason to say that we suspect this woman. There's already a reason, she's already been warned, and therefore it could be understandable to say that the husband is allowed to say that he saw that she went into seclusion. But Hasabit over there, meaning within Rav Yosef Rav Yehuda, where just the warning which begins the process can just be on the word of the husband. Leka ikar, you have no foundation even to accuse her. So it's far worse than Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara says, you're right. Ela yitmar hachi yitmar. Rather, if any statement was made, the statement should be as follows. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef, Amar Rav Yochanan. Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef says that Rav Yochanan says, L'divrei Rav Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, we can extend it af l'mishnah seinu. Even according to the Mishnah, we can have the same argument against it. Ein l'davar sof. Whether you're going to say, again, one witness by kinoi, like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, but even in our Mishnah, where there's one witness by stira, you can also make the argument, ein l'davar sof. There's no end to the amount of accusations. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Chanina Misura, Rabbi Chanina from Surah says, Lo leimo inish li'itase bizman hazeh. A person shouldn't say to his wife, nowadays, lo tistri bahade ploni, don't go into seclusion with so-and-so. Dilma kaimal on Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, because maybe we actually hold like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Kinoi al Piatzmo says the warning can come from the husband himself, and then the warning is going to be an effective warning. Umistatra, and then she's going to go into seclusion. V'leko idna me Sotah lemivdika, and nowadays we don't have the waters of the Sotah to check her. And so then, and then she's going to become prohibited to him forever, and that's going to create a problem. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reish Lakish says, Ma lashon kinoi, what is this language of kinoi that we use when we're talking about the warning? It means, Davar hamatel kina beina levein acherim. It means that the warning causes anger between her and between others, because since the husband warned her not to go into seclusion with others, so she will keep away from men, and then these men will be angry in terms of the change of her behavior that she's keeping away. And the Gemara says, Alma, we see, Kasavar kinoi al pi atzma, we see that he holds that the kinoi can be done just by the husband alone. V'kuli alma lo yadi dekanila, and everybody else, nobody's aware that he warned her. V'amri, and that's why they suddenly say, Mai dekamod, dekabadla, what's with this woman over here? She's suddenly separating from everybody. V'yasu lemeved kinabada, and that's going to create anger with her. And so therefore, again, you see from his explanation of the word kinoi, from Reish Lakish's explanation, that it's the husband alone who issues the warning. Rav Yemar bar Rav Shalmiya mishmei da Abaya Amar, and Rav Yemar bar Rav Shalmiya says in the name of Abaya, Davar hamatel kina beino leveina, that the reason why it's called kinoi is because it creates anger between him and her, meaning between the husband and the wife. And the Gemara says, Alma, we see from his opinion, Kasavar kinoi al pi shnayim edim, that he holds that the kinoi is done in front of two witnesses. V'kuli alma yadi dekanila, and therefore everybody knows that he issued the warning to her. V'iyu hu da'asi lemevad kina ba'adan. The concern is that he's the one that's going to create this anger between him and her, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph.